at this point, the relationship with my parents, it was dead at this point.
Did you live with them at this point?
Did
you get out of juvenile hall?
I did. When I got out of the facility,
okay,
I stayed with them for like a few months.
Okay.
And then my oldest brother, who was back in Oregon, he was actually in Washington, but he was right across the border. He was in Vancouver, Washington. I went there to stay with him and got a job and was trying to change my life, you know, and but I had this relationship with my parents was kind of dead at the time because all that bitterness from before never healed. And so I get out of the facility, and I'm staying with my parents, and then next thing I know, I'm going to Washington and trying to establish my life. I got a job working at a steakhouse there. And
how old are you at this point?
At this point, I was 19.
19.
Almost
okay.
19 when I moved there. And I stayed there with my brother for a few years. I was in Vancouver, and I was excelling in the restaurant business.
Nice.
And in fact, I was working at this steakhouse in Washington, and I ended up being the kitchen manager there.
Wow.
The restaurant manager. They sent me to school, the community college there.
Wow.
And so I was doing really good, you know. I wasn't really messing with the drugs. I was drinking a lot, you know, but I wasn't messing with the drugs. And while I'm working there, as soon as I turned 21, these two guys come into the restaurant that I'm working at, the steakhouse. They say, "Hey, we want to talk to you about a job opportunity." So these two guys wanted to open up a bar and grill in downtown Portland. And I'm thinking, okay. And they offered me a good salary. They said, "We want you to build up from scratch a bar and grill." And so I went to Portland. I went to work for these guys in downtown Portland. Now, downtown Portland is really shady in a lot of areas.
What is it really?
It is. I mean, you got where we were at, there's strip clubs. These cheap dollar bars were everywhere. There was a lot of junkies around the area, a lot of homeless. So it wasn't the best environment. So I went working there, and when I went to work for them, I was working so many hours that I was like, oh, I think I need something to help me get through these long hours, because I was literally opening up at the restaurant. I'd open up at 8 in the morning, get everything ready for the lunch, because we opened at like 11 o'clock or 10:30. And then I would work until 2 or 3 in the morning. So I'd get like 2 hours of sleep in between, 3 hours of sleep. So I started messing with the dope again, with the speed.
Kind of keep you up a little bit.
Keep me up, keep me going. And that just turned into this nonstop kind of a party lifestyle where I'd open up the doors at the bar, because in Portland you had to shut the bar down at 2 o'clock, and we had live music there and everything. And so I just opened up the doors to have people come in and start partying, and they'd bring drugs, and a lot of times didn't even sleep. And what this led to for me was instantly almost a complete downfall. It almost took me back to where I was when I was 15, 16 years old, consumed by drugs again.
With money.
With money.
Yeah,
with money.
That's even more dangerous.
Yeah, and access to a lot more things and a lot more stuff. So I still had the dead relationship with my parents when I was there. And what happened in Portland was, got into this relationship with this gal in Portland, and she was into drugs as well, cocaine and meth. Well, she ended up overdosing on what they call speedball. She would inject it, and she got OD'd, she died. And I remember getting really angry when she passed away. I was 22.
And she was like one of the girls you partied with or something? You knew her like that?
Yeah, I knew her. She was like kind of like a girlfriend, but off on.
Yeah.
And she ended up overdosing, and that tore me up. At that moment in my life, everything was a mess because of the drugs. And so what I did was I said, it's God's fault. I just came to this place where I started blaming God for everything.
So let's pause there. That's a good segue for this. Is what was your, I guess, mentality or perspective towards God just quickly growing up? And I know you said that you're Roman Catholic or Christmas and Easter, but did you have a concept of God, to like pray to Him every now and then? Like, where you at in this stage?
Yeah, my concept of God was angry,
Okay.
and He was in the clouds just throwing lightning bolts at me. You know, this angry God of judgment and wrath. That, you know, all those times going to Catholic services, I even went to Catholic school for a couple of years.
Okay.
Never did I hear about grace or love or forgiveness, or mercy. It was always the judgment of God. It was always judgment, 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 purgatory, all the garbage that comes with that. And so I had this understanding that God already hated me. That's how I felt at that time. That He already had this judgment and hatred towards me. So I snapped, literally snapped mentally at that point when she passed away. I snapped mentally, and I didn't know how to deal with it. So I took that anger, and I took it out on God.
Okay.